Hey, good, happy Thursday. Welcome to the 30. This is Patrick, and we have a wonderful show lined up for you today. I want to thank you again for joining us on yet another Thursday evening. And on the 30, again, the 30 is sponsored by Sea Ray's Thought Pops. If you are looking for an emoji stick that makes you smile, this is one. You can just give them a call. I will put some information up for Cindy and Sea Ray's Thought Pops up as we go through the broadcast. But I want to welcome you, especially those that are new to the program. I want to welcome you to the 30. And those that have been with us for a very long time, again, welcome. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have someone that comes with years of experience, and she's going to talk to us about the entrepreneur's enemy. And I am going to bring her in right now because I really want to find out what is the enemy of entrepreneurs. I know there's a lot that entrepreneurs and small businesses owners go through. But I want to talk to her specifically about that one item that she calls the entrepreneur's enemy. So let's bring Carol in. And Carol, I want to thank you for joining us on the 30. I know you are an expert in terms of entrepreneurship and talking to different groups. So tell our viewers who you are and what you do and your business.
Sure. I'm glad to be here with you. Well, my name's Carol Rickard. By training, I am a licensed clinical social worker, and for 30 years have worked in hospitals, teaching patients and the medical staff and actually the community stress management skills. And that's where I kind of resided. I actually started my LLC about 14 years ago with the dream was to help people before they got to the hospital, right? You shouldn't have to land in a hospital and get so sick in order to be well. And so that put me on that path to being an entrepreneur. And I straddled, both worlds for a little while as a full-time employee and also as, an entrepreneur. And it was only within the last year that I kind of transitioned completely and full-time into my business.
Awesome, Carol. Now you are the CEO of YOUniversity, and you're also known as America's ultimate stress expert. So let's talk about entrepreneurship and let's talk about the entrepreneur's enemy. What is the enemy for entrepreneurs?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned it. There are a lot of enemies, right?
Absolutely.
I was, when I just think about that, the entrepreneur's enemy, I know for me, the couple that I've faced down was certainly my own self and my beliefs, that I had about being an entrepreneur and whether or not I could even do this. And, you're transitioning from, I never used to have to look for customers. They came to me. So that transition was a great challenge. But in the work that I've done over the last year, the one thing that I've found in working with entrepreneurs, and I call it the entrepreneur's enemy because it's invisible, is just the sheer amount of stress that goes along with being an entrepreneur. Because you are most likely, if you're a solopreneur, right? Yeah. I mean, you are the CEO, you are the director of marketing, you're the director of research and development. You have all these different hats. And that's in addition to really the family life that you have. And what I've noticed over this last year of transitioning was, boy, it kind of ekes out and it's invisible and it invades, it invades my life if I'm not careful in looking out for that. One woman I worked with just recently who was a business coach, and we were having this conversation, and turns out she's living her life of her dreams, right? She's traveling in her RV, doing her coaching business and kind of that from the side there while she's traveling and seeing the country. And yet she and her partner have actually been having some relationship difficulties. And as we talked, we could kind of tie it back to the stress sort of spilling out. And you know this, Patrick, from doing your show. If you don't have a good feed, right, if you don't have a good internet connection, if you don't have all those things, then it makes it hard to even just really do your job. And that's what she was struggling with.
So you deal with a lot of different types of entrepreneurs, and you bring your 30 years of expertise in it. What are some of the things that are stressors when it comes to specifically entrepreneurs and small business owners?
Well, here's the amazing thing. The true definition is our response to a change or a situation. So if you think about how many situations entrepreneurs have to deal with on a daily basis, there's those big things, but then there's also those those sort of little things. It's that making sure that you kind of got all your bases covered. You're doing your social media posts. You're, kind of bringing in your customers. You're also then doing that networking. It's kind of like a bit of a juggling act, especially if you don't have anybody else there helping you out to do that.
Sure. What about the business yourself? Why did you get into this type of business where you're known as the ultimate stress expert? Why this type of business?
Well, you know what, Patrick, I honestly believe that that's kind of why the good Lord put me on this earth. My life journey started out with having eye surgery when I was 2 years old.
Wow.
And actually not knowing it at the time, but hearing from my sister the impact, because back then, this was back in the 60s, I do have a bit of gray hair, so, I'm a little bit older.
We all do.
And so it was so different. And I realized that, back to when I was a baby, lost my father when I was just 14 years old. And I ended up stealing alcohol as a way of just getting myself through that. Lost my mom when I was 27 years old. And so all of these life challenges kind of put me on a path. And I was very fortunate to then have the good Lord put me in a hospital to go to work and begin to learn these healthier ways that we could really take on life and kind of, I call it standing tall to life, because you don't get to control what life throws at you. Sure. And certainly anybody, who's tried to keep their business going through this pandemic, would have never, as I like to say, you don't get to choose the cards you're dealt. You only get to play them out the best that you can.
Great. Now, you also have written books and books and books. You said 25, but I heard it was 25 plus books. Are they all on stress?
Different parts? Okay. Actually, there are several on stress, but under that, if you think about emotions can just be a stress response. So I have a book that I wrote on anger. I wrote a book that I wrote on self-care, and it's on wellness, and it's all the tools that I used to teach my patients. And you're right, I have lots of books because I thought, all right, that's the way to get it to people, right?
Right.
Get the information out there to people. And that's only the little piece of it.
Sure.
It's the marketing. And I really felt a year ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3 uterine cancer. And again, I took it as a blessing, because how could I ever understand or help anybody with that stress, having never gone through that myself? And so that's really what led to the transfer of my no longer being able to work in a hospital because of COVID to this full-time entrepreneurship.
Wow. So you have gone through quite a bit then, so you can speak to what you're actually teaching.
Yeah. As I like to say, and I would say to my patients, that I live what I teach and I teach what I live. And that's how I know that it works so well.
Awesome. Now, I've heard you spoke on Tuesday with our Lunch and Learn group, and you talked about a piece of paper, right? So talk to us about that from maybe a business, an entrepreneur's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So a piece of paper. I think you were referring to the dump and destroy
The
tool.
dump and destroy. That's right. Dump and
Yeah.
destroy.
Yeah. So, that was a tool I actually came across 25 years ago. And who here is an entrepreneur hasn't laid down to go to sleep at night, and before you hit the pillow, your mind has already started racing?
Right.
Maybe about what you didn't do that day or what you need to do tomorrow. And the problem is that racing mind just interferes with your ability to get some rest.
Sure.
So you
Been there,
can
done that.
so you can wake up and, hit the ground running the next morning, right?
Sure.
And so the idea of this dump and destroy is that as we go through our day, our stress, whether we're aware of it or not, just starts to pile. It's kind of like the level rises. If you imagine, by the time we get to bed at night, it's up to here. So when you lay down to go to sleep, your brain, it's kind of flooded. And what we have to do is take and get that level back down. And so this technique, what it do is you actually will it's ideal if you can get up and get out of bed. All right. If it's not safe for you to do that, then by all means, don't do that. But the idea is to go into a separate place, into your kitchen, take a piece of paper, just start writing, and these are the things that are just running through my mind. Here's the secret, though. You don't concentrate on what you're writing. You just let it flow. And then you do not read what you wrote. And you go back and you lay down. Now, I know from experience that I have done that. And I went back and I lay down. And guess what? More stuff bubbled up.
Exactly.
And so the most I've had to do this before I could fall asleep was 3 times.
Oh, wow.
There was still more that I needed to put on that paper and then go back and lay down. And I've also had it be that I would get out of bed, write one word on a piece of paper, and that was enough to just put it to rest. And the reason that we don't read it is because when you read it, it kind of reloads it back in your brain. So it just kind of pushes that level back up again, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. And that was fascinating when I heard you mention it on Tuesday. So thank you. I'm speaking to Carol Rickard. She is a stress expert, an author of over 25 books. If you would like to ask Carol any questions, just drop it in the comments field. Or if you simply want to say hi to Carol, go ahead and drop it in the comments field, and we'll make sure that we bring that up for you. So Carol, let's talk about where you are now, right? And then I want to hear where you want to go next with your business.
Yeah. Well, where I am is over the years is that part-time, I call it part-time entrepreneur, right? Because I really didn't have that much time to invest. But where I am now is having spent some time and some effort learning marketing. Because what I've learned is that you could have the greatest service or product in the world, but if you don't get that out to people and in front of people, then nobody's going to know that. And so for me, it's kind of looking at how can I take those little pieces that I've put together over the years and really construct something that's really going to serve people. Because I know this about you too, Patrick. It's really about how can you serve other people, on their life's journey, whatever that may happen to be.
That's good. That's good. Now I noticed that you have some pictures there. You have Dr. Oz. So let's talk about some of the things from your journey. And where you've been since starting off this journey.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah, the books became kind of like a key, that had actually opened some doors for me. And I've had the honor of kind of being the stress expert in some different magazines and articles. The America's Ultimate Stress Expert came from Woman's World magazine.
Oh, nice.
Where I actually was a guest. I was actually an expert on caregiver stress, because, as you can imagine, and I don't know if you, Patrick, yourself have been a caregiver, but I was my mom's caregiver. I mean, when my dad died, I was a caregiver at 14. and unfortunately learned lots of bad habits. You know, so and then it was probably about 4 years ago I had an opportunity to contribute on the Dr. Oz show, and I have to tell you that was scary. I mean, and I think that's the other thing that I've come to learn as an entrepreneur is you can't let the fear stop you.
Right.
And that persistence. I have this story I love to share about the Dr. Oz, and his producer and I were kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And I'd sent emails, and I left a voice message, and I didn't hear back, and I didn't hear back, and I realized, what would I regret more? So I ended up reaching out one more time to her, and we were actually able to connect. But I remember driving there saying, "Oh, do I call one more time? Do I call one more time?" It's like, do you want to not call?
Right.
And what are you going to regret more? Either doing it and just, even looking kind of foolish for it, or having known that you kind of missed out on this opportunity to contribute. And so that was one of the life lessons that I learned along the way is, in this journey.
Yeah, I always tell folks all the time, what's the worst that can happen, right? Them saying yes.
Yeah. Which can be scary.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I honestly think that's one of the beliefs that I've kind of had to work through myself. Because quite honestly, I love my life. I feel very blessed and very grateful. And I can remember saying, I love my life. And then I caught myself. I was like, well, if you love your life, then how are you going to make these positive changes if you don't want it to change?
Yeah. Yeah. Carol, where can be, and I'll put it up here. And so this is where your books can be bought, right?
Yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that takes you directly to my author page on Amazon.
Awesome. What are some of the things that you've learned about yourself in terms of being an author? Let's say someone wants to start or had a dream of being an author. What are some of the things that you can give them?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad you asked that, Patrick, because it is easier than what people have made in their mind. In fact, for one of my local nonprofits, we did a workshop, and it was called How to Write the Book You Always Dreamed of. And because I wrote many of my books while I was working full time. And so one of the enemies of a person that has the dream to write a book, one of the biggest enemies is time.
Right. Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't have time to sit down. And so there's a couple tools and strategies I used. One of them was, I learned this lesson a long time ago from a guy who was a financial sort of investor and consultant, and he was going to medical school. And he said he didn't have time. And so what he did was he woke up an hour early so that he could devote it to studying. And so I normally would get up at 5 o'clock, to get my exercise in, because I'd have to leave my house at 7, so I had a ritual routine. And so what I started doing was I started setting my alarm and getting up an hour earlier, and just making that commitment, just at 1 hour time. The other strategy I did was that I always had a piece of paper or one of these little notepads, just a little spiral notepad.
Yeah.
So I could jot down my ideas, because, they come to you when you least expect them.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I tell folks.
And then the third tool, what I would say to people is I created a mind map. I'm a very visual person. And so what I did with all my books was, let's say the COVID stress monster, how to tame your COVID stress monster, that I put in the middle. And then I just put what were the main points that I wanted to cover. And then from that main point, so there's 3 steps that I teach, all right, to tame your COVID stress monster. And then off of each of those. And what it does is it creates a visual outline, but it really just makes it so much easier for people to get their ideas together. And another strategy I used in helping a couple people actually get their book published was we came up with questions. I was working with a psychologist who wanted to write a book, and she didn't have the time or the practice. And so what I said is, all right, give me your, what do you want to do? So it was on divorce mediation. And I said, all right, so let me I came up with 10 questions.
Mhm.
We recorded them. We had them transcribed. And there was her book.
Wow, that's
And
a great idea. What a wonderful idea. I've never heard that
Yeah.
process before. That's an excellent piece.
It's easy because, when you sit down to write, your brain is like, you get author's brain, or I call it stress brain, quite honestly.
Okay.
And this was just such a comfortable way for her to do it. We just took a computer and a microphone and just recorded that. And then she actually used it as sort of a recording that she could have on her website for people, but then it was just really the transcription. And these days, transcription has gotten really, really, really inexpensive and very, very, very good.
Awesome. Now, your last book, before we wrap up here, your last book is what? Tell us the name of your last book.
It's How to Tame Your COVID Stress Monster.
And what is it about?
Well, it's about, you know what it is? When I was going through my chemo treatment, I did that during COVID. And so I was like, the tools that I use to really keep that stress level low, right? And so it's the 3 steps. And so I give people those 3 steps. And actually, if people wanted to go to reducestressfast.com, they can even find a sample chapter in there that kind of gives them a little bit to get started if they like. But it's kind of like this pandemic pressure cooker that we're all living in. And unfortunately, people are kind of gravitating to what I used to do when I was 14, and that was what I call the survival tools. They're the things we grab at to just get through the moment. And during the pandemic, one of mine has still been food.
Right. Yeah. I think that's most of ours, right? Is food, is that stress eating.
Or shopping. The other thing that I've known is because people were at home and had such quick access that they doubled or tripled what they would be spending online on shopping and not really meaning to.
So in the book, Carol, does it have some strategies as you said in terms of how to...
Yeah. I'm all about the tools, right? I mean, I call them life tools, Patrick. Because, we have a toolbox to take care of all the physical problems that come up in our, around us. But we also have to have a toolbox for life. And those are the healthy ways that we can kind of use it to kind of manage it. And again, I can't control the cancer, but what I can control is the control and power that it has over me.
Sure. So how have your lifestyle changed since being diagnosed?
Well, I tell you what, I was somebody had quite an unusual probably experience because I've lived and I've taught, what I love to teach for so long. The moment the words came out of my doctor's mouth, my reaction was I was grateful. Because, and here's the trick, and I'll share that with the viewers. One of the strategies I teach my patients is you look at a situation and instead of looking at how bad it is, you finish this sentence. It could be worse. And then you say that whole thing out loud and then how it could be. And so in my head, I did that immediately with that diagnosis. And I was like, well, it could be worse. I could have had this in my body and never known about it.
Right.
And so at least I know about it so that I can do something about it.
That's awesome, Carol. That's awesome.
Because our brain is wired to go to that negative.
Sure.
And so what we need to do is our brain has both, it's kind of like it has both channels working at the same time. Our job is to kind of focus on that positive. And this is a way that you can immediately take yourself to, it could be worse. My car could have been totaled, or My car was total. It could have been worse. I could have been in the hospital, or I could have been dead. And it's just to anchor yourself so that you don't get swept away in that negative place.
Great. Carol, as we end, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they? I know I have, is this the right one?
Yep. And they could even reach out to me, just, even Carol at Stress YOUniversity.
Okay.
I always like to say it's the you, because you're the most important part of the equation.
Great. So Carol at
Stress YOUniversity.
University. Okay, great. And I'll put that in the comments as well.
Yeah.
Carol, is there anything else as we wrap up? And I'm going to put you on the hot spot a little bit here now. But is there anything else that you'd like to share with our viewers before we go into what I call the rapid fire?
No, I think is just realize that stress is kind of like laundry. If you don't do it, it will pile up.
Sure.
And what we want to do is just make sure that we're doing little things throughout our day to kind of do a load of stress laundry, as I like to say.
Great. All right, let's go to our rapid fire. So I'm going to just throw out 3 or 4 questions to you, and I want a quick response. All right, ready?
Yep.
Latest book you've read?
I'm sorry, what?
The latest book you have read?
That would be Tiny Habits.
Tiny Habits, okay. Your favorite food?
I love pizza, but it doesn't love me.
Who doesn't like pizza, huh? Let's see. Your favorite movie?
The Wizard of Oz.
Okay. Your favorite type of music?
Oh, I love all kinds of music.
Okay.
I was going to say, if I have to pick a favorite, I would go with jazz.
Jazz. Oh, nice. Nice touch.
Yeah.
Nice touch. Okay. Your mentor or someone that you look up to. Let's put it that way. Someone that you admire or look up to.
Well, there's my mom, but then I also have a marketing mentor that I've just really, really looked up to and learned a lot from.
Okay, great. Carol, I want to thank you so very much. You have been awesome. I want to thank you for coming on a Lunch and Learn on Tuesday, and I hope that you come back, even as a member. And I want to thank you for taking your time to be a guest on the 30. All the best. I know that we'll catch each other soon. Last comments, Carol?
Yeah. No, just really to people to have hope and to know that, we can take on what life throws at us. And we don't have to get overwhelmed and lost in it.
Awesome. Thank you, Carol. God bless you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. So we've been talking with Carol Rickard, and she is CEO of Stress YOUniversity and known as America's ultimate stress expert. So if you would like to get a hold of Carol, I'm going to put her information up here. Once again, you can contact her, and I'm sure that she'll be happy to get back to you. Or you can purchase some of her books. Go to amazon.com/author/Carol Rickard. So that's it for the 30. I want to thank Cindy Ray of C Ray's Thought Pops. And these are the emoji sticks that brings joy to everyone. So make sure that you contact her. Let her know that you heard it on the 30, and she'll certainly take care of you. Let's see. Okay, for our next Lunch and Learn, and you've heard me talk about a Lunch and Learn, this is where we bring together leaders, professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs, where we come together as a group every other Tuesday. And our focus is on connection, development, and inspiration. So I invite you to join us. Reserve your seat. The next one is on February 16th. It's always from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern time, and that's every other Tuesday. So make sure that you click on the link. I'll also put that in the comments field, and we would love to see you at the Lunch and Learn hour. So that brings us to the end of another wonderful The 30 with Patrick Jackman. Again, I want to thank Carol, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. If you're watching it and replay, go ahead and drop some comments, and so that we can see exactly what you have to say. If you would like to be a guest on the 30, feel free. Contact me. I'll put my email address up there so you can send me an email or drop me a line, give me a call, and I would love to have you on the 30. So until then, may God continue to bless you and your family. Be safe. Be safe. Make sure you wear a mask, wash your hands, and social distance. Until then, be blessed.